Hi guys, today we talk about how easy it is to modify values of form objects by programming and get the display actualized. Why might this be needed? Imagine you have a form used as translator or as dictionary or as calculator for numbers or as a currency converter, to name only some of lots of several possibilities. Or maybe more complex, exchange and display values or messages between forms, even between different processes. Let me show you a small sample how this was done in old times, for example with variables in forms. Here we have the simple test form. On the top left we have an input. The input has a variable name vInput to access it. Below a button to set a value by programming. And the same on the right side, we will see it later on in the second part of the sample. This variable here is bound to the internal form variable. Inside this internal form variable, we have an object called object, and this object has an attribute, calc attribute for calculated attribute. And also here we have a button to set a value by programming. Okay, looks very easy. Let's have a first test and see how it worked in old times. Of course, here we have no input. I forgot to delete it. And now we click on the button. Here in line 3, we see the variable gets assigned text, and we go on in the debugger, and here we are. This is the result. So let's close it and let's go on with the explanations. But you do not want to use this ancient way of working anymore. You want to use order. Order and objects, maybe even shared objects. You want to be modern and use calculated attributes in project mode. Calculated attributes not defined and not existing in the object. They only exist at runtime. This is very efficient. And to be more modern, use own class functions with a getter and a setter for the calculated attribute. Okay, let's have a look at the second part of the sample. Here is my own class function named myClass. We first define a class function object to work with. Please ignore the comments at this stage. We come back to these explanations later. Then we have a getter to get values of the calculated attribute. And we have a function, a setter, to set a value to the calculated attribute. Okay, that all looks very easily. We have a method run. In the method run, we create a new instance for this myClass object, and then we duplicate it to a second object to hand it over as parameter for the command dialog for our test form, the test form we have seen before. Okay, looks very easy at this stage. Let's run this, and here we have no value right now. We click to the button, a similar easy line into the form object, into the object inside the form object, and into this calculated attribute we write a value. And if we go on, that's it. But we do not see any value. Why don't we see any value? Yeah, very simple, because we have not actualized it. Click in and out, and we see the value. Is this good? No. This is bad. No automatic actualization or redraw. It would also be possible to try a redraw by programming. Also bad, at least for me. Window redraw does not solve the problem. What to do? What is the best practice? Let us see how it works internally. If any real attribute of an object is modified, 4D internally uses a stamp to tell all bound interface objects, hey, I have changed my value, please redraw. But here we have a calculated attribute, and the internal stamp does not take into account calculated attributes, only real or defined attributes. So what do I use? What do I do? I use my own, let me say, stamp. It is not really a stamp, but it acts like a stamp. This is a real attribute defined in the object. Modifying this real attribute now sets the internal stamp. This does 4D by you and tells the form to actualize the bound input objects. Okay, and to do this in our sample, I have to comment 2 lines now. I defined my stamp, or normally simply a variable, or an attribute, a certain attribute, and I have a second line here, and in this second line I increment my attribute. So don't forget to save to get it working, and we again start our run our method to start the form. Again empty. We go back here, run this line again, and we see the value immediately. So that's great, because now we have an automatic actualization or redraw without any other things to do. I hope I could show you how easy it is to have an automatic actualization with a minimum of programming. Thank you for your attention.